Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification.
The Atlantic salmon fillets were not merely placed on the cutting board. They were calibrated. Elias Thorne adjusted the left fillet by exactly 1 inch to the south, ensuring it ran parallel to the grain of the bamboo board. He had purchased them at 7 in the morning. From the fishmonger at the wharf. A man named Koval, who knew better than to offer Elias anything less than the center cut. Devoid of bones. Devoid of irregularities. The kitchen was silent. Save for the low, rhythmic hum of the refrigerator. A frequency Elias had long ago ceased to hear consciously. Though his brain registered it as a binary signal, operational, safe, he looked at the wall clock. It was 4:40 in the afternoon. The house, a mid-century modern structure of glass and timber, nestled in the damp hills of Portland, was staged to perfection. Elias had spent the morning polishing the floorboards until they reflected the gray sky outside. This was not just a Friday, it was the 11th anniversary of the contract they had signed in a humid courthouse. A day Lydia had insisted was romantic in its spontaneity, though Elias recalled the lack of air conditioning and the sweat on her upper lip with vivid clarity. On the granite counter, a bouquet of white peonies sat in a vase, water temperature controlled to 65 degrees. Lydia had once remarked, 4 years and 2 months ago, that peonies reminded her of forgiveness. Elias had filed this data away. He did not ask what she needed forgiveness for back then. He simply interpreted it as a preference for the floral species, Paeonia. He was seasoning the fish with a mixture of dill, lemon zest, and sea salt, the exact chemical ratio used during their first dinner date, when his phone vibrated against the marble. One vibration, a notification, a variable, entering the system. Elias dried his hands on a linen towel, folding it twice before placing it down next to the sink. He did not rush. Panic was an inefficient expenditure of caloric energy. He picked up the device. Sender, Lydia. Time, 16:42. Content: disaster at the gallery. The lighting rig for the abstract exhibit failed. I have to stay and manage the crew. Don't wait up. I am so sorry. I love you. Elias read the message once. Then he read it a second time, analyzing the syntax. Disaster. So sorry. The intensification of adjectives was a statistically significant deviation. In the first 5 years of their marriage, Lydia's texts regarding lateness were concise. Efficient. Running late. Start without me. In the last 6 months, the texts had become elaborate narratives, filled with catastrophic justifications. Elias felt a tightening in his chest. A lesser man, a man governed by poetry and impulse, would call it heartbreak. Elias identified it as the physical manifestation of stress cortisol, flooding his vascular system. Due to a pattern recognition alert, he did not reply. To reply was to engage in a negotiation he had already lost. He placed the phone back on the counter. Face down, he looked at the salmon. It was perfect. The table on the patio was set with the linen tablecloth she claimed to adore. The beeswax candles were unlit. Elias walked to the hallway closet. He did not remove his apron immediately. He stared at his reflection in the hallway mirror. He saw a man of 42, hair thinning slightly at the temples, posture rigid, eyes framed by wire-rimmed glasses. A man who assessed risk for a living. A man who calculated the probability of catastrophic failure for bridges, for mergers, for shipping lanes. For the past 3 weeks, he had been calculating the probability of failure for his own marriage. The current projection was 99.8%. He returned to the kitchen. He did not throw the salmon away. Waste was illogical. He retrieved a thermal container from the pantry. He seared the fish. 3 minutes on the skin side, 2 on the flesh. He placed it into the container, alongside the roasted asparagus spears. He packed the bottle of chilled Chardonnay, a vintage she had marked as a favorite on her wine app. He was not going to the gallery to surprise her. He was not going to be the doting husband, trying to salvage an evening. He was going to verify the data. The drive to the city center took 28 minutes. Traffic was light. For a Friday, the windshield wipers beat a rhythmic tempo against the glass, clearing away the drizzle that perpetually shrouded the city. In a diffusion of gray light, Elias engaged the turn signal 300 feet before the exit, a habit ingrained since he was 16. As the car idled at a red light, the wipers slicing the view, his mind accessed the file labeled evidence. It wasn't a physical file, it was a mental archive, though he had backed up the digital footprint on an encrypted drive in his safe. It had begun 22 days ago. Elias had been working from home, utilizing the shared desktop computer in the study to update his actuarial portfolio. Lydia rarely used the desktop. She preferred her tablet, guarding it with the jealousy of a dragon guarding gold. However, she had logged in to print a shipping manifest for a large sculpture, and had neglected to log out of the cloud synchronization service. Elias had not been hunting. He was simply organizing the desktop icons by file type. He had opened the Documents folder to save a spreadsheet, and noticed a subfolder labeled Archived Chats that had recently synced from her mobile device. Curiosity is a human flaw. Verification is a professional necessity. He opened it. The messages were with a contact listed as Silas Vane, artist. Date, 8 months ago. Silas, the light in the gallery hits your hair perfectly today. It is distracting. Lydia, stop it. You are the talent. I am just the manager. Focus on the clay. Date, 6 months ago. Silas, I need you to look at this sketch. Come to the studio. The warehouse on 4th. Lydia, I should go home. Elias is waiting. It is Taco Tuesday. He likes the routine. Silas, let him wait. He only sees numbers. I see you. I see the colors you hide. Date, 3 weeks ago. Lydia, he suspects nothing. He is so predictable. It is almost boring how safe he is. He is a metronome, Silas. Tick. Tock. Silas, safety is a cage, lied. I want to set you free. Last night was transcendent. Elias had sat in the ergonomic chair, reading the lines without blinking. The words predictable and boring stood out in high relief. He had provided stability. He had paid off her student loans. He had financed the gallery's lean years when the art market collapsed. He had interpreted her silence as contentment, her distance as professional exhaustion. But the most damning data point was not the text messages. It was the medical anomaly. 6 months prior, Lydia had returned home pale and trembling. She claimed it was a severe migraine. The next morning, she told him she had a gynecological issue, a minor cyst that needed rapid intervention. She claimed her sister, Marion, was taking her to the clinic. Elias had offered to drive. He had offered to hold her hand. Lydia had refused, her voice pitching an octave higher than normal. It's humiliating, Elias. I don't want you to see me like that. Marion is already on her way. Just go to work. Please. He had respected her boundary. He had gone to work. He had monitored his phone all day. When she returned, she was hollow, sleeping for 18 hours. Now, as the traffic light turned green, Elias gripped the steering wheel. The leather felt cold. 2 days ago, he had called Marion. He did not ask directly. That would alert the subject. He had used a social engineering tactic. Marion, I was just looking at photos from 6 months ago. I realized I never thanked you for taking Lydia to her procedure that day. It meant a lot to me that you were there. When I couldn't be. There had been a pause on the line. A silence lasting 4 seconds. Procedure? Marion had asked, her voice confused. Elias. I haven't seen Lydia on a weekday in 2 years. I was in Chicago for a marketing conference 6 months ago. What procedure? Elias had laughed it off, claiming he must have confused the dates. But the data was now irrefutable. Lydia had undergone a medical procedure alone. Or rather, accompanied by someone else. And Elias, utilizing his knowledge of biology, and the timeline of her migraines and nausea leading up to that date, had calculated the only probable variable. She had been pregnant. And she had terminated it. The car rolled to a stop in the alley behind the gallery. The building was a converted warehouse. Industrial. Chic, with exposed brick and iron. The windows on the upper floor Lydia's office were glowing with a soft, warm light. There was no crew. There were no trucks outside. There was no lighting rig failure. Elias checked his watch. 5:25. He picked up the thermal basket. He did not feel rage. Rage is hot. It burns fuel. He felt the cold, heavy clarity of a judge delivering a verdict. He felt the absolute zero of indifference. Approaching. The security code for the rear entrance was 1984. Lydia had chosen it because she claimed it was ironic for an art space to use Orwell. Elias entered the numbers. The lock clicked open with a mechanical surrender. The hallway smelled of turpentine, old brick, and expensive perfume. It was silent. If a crew were fixing a lighting rig, there would be shouting, the clang of ladders, the buzz of drills. There was only the low, ambient hum of the HVAC system. Elias walked softly. He wore rubber-soled shoes. Sensible for walking. Excellent. For stealth. He moved past the main showroom, where twisted metal sculptures cast long, grotesque shadows against the walls. He reached the freight elevator, but decided against it. The mechanical noise would announce his arrival. He took the stairs, climbing 2 flights to the executive level. As he reached the landing, he heard it. Music. It was not the jarring noise of construction. It was a cello piece. Bach. Suite, No. 1. In G major. Elias stood in the shadows of the corridor. The door to Lydia's office was ajar. A sliver of golden light spilled out, cutting across the concrete floor like a laser. He moved closer. His heart rate remained steady at 72 beats per minute. A testament to his dissociation. He was now an observer. A camera. Recording the end of an era. He peered through the gap. The office had been transformed. The architectural blueprints usually strewn across the conference table were gone. In their place were dozens of votive candles, flickering in glass holders. 2 figures occupied the room. Lydia was sitting on the edge of her mahogany desk. She was not wearing her business suit. She was wearing a red silk dress that slipped off one shoulder. A garment Elias had never seen. Likely purchased with the discretionary fund. Her head was thrown back. Her throat exposed in a laugh that Elias had not heard in 5 years. Standing between her knees was a man. Silas Vane. Elias recognized him from the gallery website bio. He was younger than Elias, perhaps 35. He wore paint-splattered jeans and a tight black t-shirt that emphasized his arms. His hands large, rough. Sculptor's hands were resting possessively on Lydia's waist. They were drinking red wine. From the crystal glasses Elias had bought Lydia for her promotion. To the lighting rig, Silas toasted. His voice a low rumble. Lydia giggled. A sound that grated on Elias's ears like metal on glass. To the disaster, she replied, clinking her glass against his. God. I thought he would never stop texting. Have a good night. He is so suffocating. He is just a wallet, Lyd, Silas said. Leaning in to kiss her neck, you utilize the wallet. You love the artist. Elias watched as his wife, the woman he had vowed to protect, ran her fingers through the messy hair of the sculptor. He watched as they kissed. A deep, devouring kiss. It spoke of a familiarity bred over months of clandestine meetings. It was not a tentative first kiss. It was the routine affection of a parallel marriage. The basket in Elias's hand felt heavy. He did not burst in. He did not scream. He simply pushed the door open until it hit the stopper, with a dull thud. The sound was enough. Lydia jumped, knocking her wine glass over. Red liquid pooled across the desk, dripping onto the floor like a fresh wound. Silas spun around, placing himself instinctively in front of Lydia, though his eyes widened in genuine fear. Elias stood in the doorway. the thermal basket in one hand, the bottle of Chardonnay in the other. He looked at the candles. He looked at the spilled wine. He looked at his wife's exposed shoulder. Elias, Lydia breathed. The color draining from her face so rapidly she looked like one of the marble statues downstairs. What? What are you doing here? Elias walked into the room. He placed the basket on the only clear space on the table. He set the Chardonnay down next to it. It is Friday, Elias said. His voice was devoid of inflection. It is the 11th of November. I prepared the salmon. It is the menu from our first date. He gestured to the scene. But I see. You have adjusted the itinerary. The silence that followed was heavy. Pressurized. Like the air before a thunderstorm, Silas cleared his throat. Stepping forward slightly. Hands raised in a placating gesture. Look, mate. This isn't what it looks like. We were just. Stop, Elias said. He did not shout. But the command was absolute. He turned his gaze to Silas. You are Silas Vane. Born in 1988. You utilize clay and mixed media. You have defaulted on 2 studio leases in the past 4 years. You currently owe $15,000. In back taxes. Silas blinked. His mouth hanging open. How do you? I am an analyst, Mr. Vane. I analyze liabilities. And you are a significant one. Elias turned his back on the man, dismissing him as a non-threat, and focused entirely on Lydia. Lydia was clutching the dress together. Shivering. Despite the warmth of the room, tears were beginning to well in her eyes. A defensive mechanism. Elias noted. Elias, please, she sobbed. I can explain. We were working late. And we had a glass of wine and things got out of hand. It meant nothing. It was just a moment. A moment of weakness. A moment, Elias repeated. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and placed it on the desk, right over the puddle of spilled wine. The red liquid soaked into the paper, staining the printed text. It was a transcript of the chat logs. 8 months, Elias said. 342 distinct conversations. 12 hotel stays charged to the gallery's discretionary fund, disguised as client entertainment. This was not a moment, Lydia. This is a fiscal quarter. Lydia stared at the paper. Her trembling increased. You spied on me. I synced the computer, Elias corrected. You were careless. You called me predictable. You called me boring. You called me a wallet. I didn't mean it. Lydia cried, reaching for his hand. Elias stepped back, avoiding her touch as if she were contagious. I was just venting. Elias, I love you. We can fix this. I'll stop seeing him. Immediately. She looked at Silas with sudden venom. Get out, Silas. Go. Silas looked between them. His ego bruised. His charm useless against Elias's wall of ice. Wow. Okay. You two deserve each other. You're crazy. He grabbed his jacket and bolted from the room, leaving the door swinging. Lydia turned back to Elias, wiping her eyes. See? He's gone. It's over. Please, Elias. 11 years. You can't throw that away because of one mistake. Elias looked at her. He studied the way the candlelight flickered in her teary eyes. He felt a phantom pain in his chest. A ghost of the love he once held, but he suppressed it. There is one more variable, Elias said softly. Lydia froze. What? 6 months ago, Elias said. The procedure. Lydia stopped breathing. The air left the room. I spoke to Marion, Elias continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a scream. She was in Chicago. She did not take you to the clinic. She does not know what you are talking about. Lydia gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. Elias, don't. Was it his? Elias asked. Lydia looked down. She did not answer. Was it his? Elias repeated, spacing the words for maximum impact. I don't know. Lydia screamed, the confession tearing out of her throat. I didn't know. That's why I did it. I couldn't risk it being his and having you find out. I did it for us, Elias. I did it to save our marriage. Elias stared at her. The logic was twisted. A knot of selfishness masquerading as sacrifice. She had terminated a potential life, perhaps his child, perhaps the stranger's, to maintain her lifestyle. To keep her wallet secure. While she played muse to the artist. You did not do it for us, Elias said. You did it for yourself, you erased a life to avoid a complication. You prioritized your affair over the potential of our family. He looked at the salmon in the thermal container. It would be cold now. I wanted a family, Elias said. A crack finally appearing in his voice. We talked about it. Year 5. Year 7. You always said, not yet. Now. I know why. Elias, I'm sorry, Lydia wailed. Sliding down to the floor, grasping at his trouser leg. Please, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Elias looked down at her. He felt a profound sense of revulsion. The woman he loved was dead. This was a stranger. Wearing her skin. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a second envelope. He dropped it onto the desk. These are the separation papers, Elias said. My attorney drafted them 3 weeks ago. I was waiting for confirmation. Thank you for providing it. He turned to the door. Elias. You can't leave me here. You have candles, Elias said without looking back. And wine. Enjoy your evening. The following weeks were an exercise in efficiency. Elias did not sleep in the master bedroom. He slept in the guest room for 2 nights. Packing his belongings into labeled boxes. Then moved to a hotel downtown. He communicated only through his lawyer. Lydia attempted to contact him 74 times. She sent emails ranging from apologies to threats of self-harm. Elias forwarded them all to the legal team. They were admissible evidence of emotional instability. Useful for the divorce proceedings. He did not spare Silas Vane. Elias did not believe in petty revenge. But he believed in accountability. He compiled a dossier. It contained the chat logs proving Silas had used gallery funds for personal hotel stays, and had knowingly engaged in a sexual relationship with the gallery director. A conflict of interest explicitly outlined in the gallery's board charter. Elias mailed the dossier to the gallery board of trustees. 4 days later, Silas Vane was removed from the gallery's representation list. His upcoming exhibition was cancelled. In the insular art world of the city, rumors spread like a virus. Silas was labeled a liability. A man who slept with the directors and stole from the coffers. Lydia was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into the misappropriation of funds. Her reputation, built on an image of sophistication and control, crumbled under the weight of the scandal. One evening, 3 weeks after the incident, Elias returned to the house to collect the remainder of his belongings. He had timed it for when Lydia was scheduled to be at a mandatory therapy session. He was packing his collection of history books when the front door opened. Lydia stood there. She had lost weight. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a severe bun. She looked like a ghost haunting her own life. You destroyed him, she said. Her voice raspy. Silas. He lost everything. He violated a contract, Elias replied. Taping a box shut. Actions have consequences. He stole money. He stole a wife. I simply reported the theft. And me? Lydia stepped forward. You're destroying me, Elias. The house. The gallery. My reputation. Is this how you love? By calculating the most efficient way to hurt people? Elias paused. He looked at her one last time. He saw the woman who had laughed at his methodical nature. Who had taken his support for granted. Who had lied about the most fundamental aspect of life. I loved you with precision, Lydia, he said. I remembered every date. I anticipated every need. I built a foundation so strong you thought it was boring, you mistook peace for stagnation. He picked up the box. You broke the contract, he said. I am simply closing the account. He walked past her. She did not try to stop him this time. She simply stood in the hallway, surrounded by the echoes of a life she had dismantled with her own hands. Log entry. 006, new variable. Time, 9 months later. Location, the neighborhood organic market. Elias pushed the cart down the produce aisle. He selected 3 bell peppers. Checking them for firmness. Rotating them to inspect for bruises. Get the red ones, a voice said beside him. They have a higher vitamin C content. And they are sweeter. Elias turned. Mara stood there, holding a basket of kale. Mara was a botanist at the city university. They had met 4 months ago at a lecture on risk management in urban agriculture. She wore no makeup. Her glasses were thick. She had paint under her fingernails. Not from art, but from soil markers. She was quiet, observant, and deeply intelligent. Red it is, Elias said, placing them in the cart. They were cooking dinner tonight. Risotto. A complex dish requiring patience, precision, and constant attention. Mara understood the value of patience. As they turned the corner toward the wine section, Elias saw her. Lydia. She was alone. She was staring at the cheaper bottles of wine on the bottom shelf. She wore a heavy coat that looked too large for her. The sharp, glamorous edges of the art director were gone, replaced by the weary softness of a woman starting over from zero. She held a basket containing a single frozen dinner, and a bottle of Pinot Grigio. She looked up and saw him. Her eyes widened. Then they shifted to Mara, who was standing close to Elias, her hand resting lightly on his forearm. Lydia's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She looked from Elias's calm face to Mara's gentle expression. She saw the ease between them, the lack of tension. Elias did not feel the adrenaline spike. He did not feel the cortisol. He checked his internal diagnostics. Heart rate, 68. Respiration, normal. Pain levels, 0. Elias, Lydia whispered. It was a question, a plea, and a goodbye, all at once. You look good. Elias nodded. A polite, curt acknowledgement he would give to a former colleague. Lydia. He did not ask how she was. He did not introduce Mara. To do so would be to invite the past into the present. Mara looked at Lydia, sensed the heavy history hanging in the air, and simply squeezed Elias's arm. Ready? She asked. Yes, Elias said. I am ready. He steered the cart past Lydia. He did not look back. He did not need to check the rearview mirror. As they walked toward the checkout, Mara asked softly, who was that? Elias thought for a moment. He calculated the weight of 11 years. The betrayal. The salmon. The clinic. The lies. He divided it by the peace he felt now. He realized that the anger was gone, replaced by a neutral data set. A statistical anomaly, Elias said. An error in the data. He paused. It has been corrected. He took Mara's hand. Her palm was warm. For the first time in his life, Elias Thorne did not know exactly what would happen next. He did not have a projection for tomorrow, and he found that perfectly acceptable. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.